Hi, I'm Chief Dean Nyer. I made this video so the general public can better understand police procedures and training surrounding the use of deadly force.
And just how crazy they really are.
I'd like to begin by echoing many of my fellow police officers when I say the general public just does not understand just how dangerous policing really is.
The 15th most dangerous job in America, right behind construction workers and landscapers. And if landscapers was allowed to shoot unfriendly dogs with complete impunity like us police, why, we would be the 14th most dangerous job in America, right behind construction workers.
That's why we police officers have to continue to make officer safety our first priority.
Innocent lives and the Constitution come secondary.
Policing has come a long way since its inception in the mid-1850s.
Back when they was a slave patrol.
In the earliest days of policing, local police forces had virtually no support from the state or federal government.
They was completely beholden to their community. Why, who would want that?
After more than 150 years since the inception of modern policing, we've advanced to the point where your officers now require months of formal training before they can even be considered for a position.
6 months. 6 whole months. And I got 9 hours of training on conflict mediation with 168 hours on how to use deadly force. What do you think they were telling us?
Today's police officer is equipped to handle almost any event. In addition to having handguns, we have military-grade rifles and armored personnel carriers. And in the event of a citizen revolt against law enforcement, as we've seen recently, we have the full support of the state and federal government.
No matter how egregious the behavior, the government's got your back with guns and excuses, completely eliminating police accountability to the community they serve.
Today's police officers face a myriad of complex political and social pressures that are completely out of their control. For example, the Baltimore police had no idea that Freddie Gray suffered from irreversible brain damage due to lead poisoning from the public housing he was brought up in as a child.
They just knew Freddie was different, and even though he didn't break any laws that day, they thought he should go to jail.
Multiple juries and multiple trials have found that the officers who made contact and jailed Freddie Gray were not guilty of a single crime.
All the officers testified that they was distracted by the crowd of people that was gathered around protesting the way they was illegally arresting Freddie. It makes sense to me. They was distracted, and that's how his neck got broke.
Those juries understood what I'm trying to tell you here today. Those officers were simply doing what they were trained to do.
Why, do you have any idea how hard policing would be if we had to actually follow the Constitution? That would be a lot of work. That's too much work. We can't do that.
We have over 2,000 cities all over this country where the citizens are being poisoned by lead or other chemicals in their water or living environment, just like Flint, Michigan, and the neighborhood where Freddie Gray grew up in Baltimore. Now, your police cannot be expected to be the healthcare worker and mental health care specialist for the next 2 generations based on the political dysfunction of your state and federal government. However, most police forces have learned to adapt.
We concentrate our efforts in the poisoned and the low-income neighborhoods because it's a lot easier to pursue and convict people that are malnourished and poisoned and can't afford a lawyer and politically weak than the people who are healthy and wealthy. Why, that's hard work. And we don't have that kind of budget.
When it comes to the inner workings of use of force, police officers typically use jacketed hollow point ammunition in their service revolvers.
It opens like a fan and spins through the body, destroying tissues and organs. That's why it would be a war crime if you used it on the battlefield. So be careful.
We police chiefs consider this ammunition safer than your standard steel or lead ammunition or even rubber bullets because it quickly slows the suspect and is less likely to travel through the suspect and strike another officer or civilian.
And the suspects tend to bleed out and die in about 15 minutes because everyone knows a dead suspect is the safest suspect to take into custody.
Officers are trained to fire multiple rounds into the subject because the body is surprisingly resilient, especially when under the influence of a drug such as PCP.
PCP! Everyone's on PCP! PCP! Hey. Hey. 1/3 of 1% of America is actually addicted to PCP. Shh. But shh. Don't tell nobody. Shh.
Officers do have a duty to render aid, but they don't need to render aid until they believe it is safe to do so.
He could be on PCP. Everyone's on PCP. I think he's got a grenade up his butt. If he farts, we're all gonna die.
The procedure for dealing with an aftermath from a use of force incident may slightly delay the treatment to the suspect, but it will ensure all the officers remain safe.
We stop rush hour traffic and fly in a helicopter if you're injured in a car accident. But if the police shoot you, well, let's say things get a little more, shall we say, delayed?
The first thing you want to do with any use of force incident is secure the scene and establish command.
You want to place the partner, the officer who fired their weapon, or their immediate supervisor in charge of any and all evidence. And make sure you review the evidence before you hand it over to investigators. Officer safety.
Once you've established command and control of the scene, you want to make sure that all the responding officers understand the plan of approach before rendering aid to a suspect.
Make sure everybody gets the story. He thought he was on PCP and he's feared for his life. Okay, copy your sergeant's report if you need to. Shh. Get your story straight.
Once the officers understand what the plan of approaching and rendering aid is, then the commanding officer will tell you if it is safe to move forward.
The suspect might be on PCP and plotting to kill as many officers as he can, even if they try to save his life. So that's why you want to wait till there's no movement before you approach. No movement at all. Absolutely no signs of life before you move up and render aid. Only then is it safe. Officer safety.
After the scene and the suspect are fully secured, it's important to have investigators start interviewing witnesses as soon as possible.
Except the officer that fired their weapon, because they have perceptual distortion. It affects uniformed officers only, right before, during, and after they fire their weapon. Kind of clouds their understanding of events. So those officers need a couple days to understand what happened.
To ensure officer safety from unwarranted civil or criminal allegations, all officers should invoke their constitutional and contractual rights,
including paid vacation, sometimes for years, and free lawyers for everything, and 48 hours before you got to talk to investigators.
So now that you've had a chance to understand policing and police procedures surrounding the use of deadly force, I should hope that you understand that we police are justified in doing what we do.
Remember, the number one rule is officer safety. The Constitution and innocent lives come second.
Some officers are afraid of being sued or fired for doing their job.
We'll straight up hold your city hostage and refuse to work. Chicago lost 700 people trying to hold police accountable. Now you don't want your city to go through that kind of heartache now, do you?
In conclusion, we police chiefs would like to thank the district attorneys and juries all over America that continue to support your police.
No matter how vicious or sadistic we may be, I just want to thank you, America, for always letting us off the hook.
I invite you to verify all the information shared with you today and to contact your local police chief or police chief association if you have any more questions.
Now, if you have any questions for me, Chief Dean Nair, why, you can get a hold of me at my email address at crazyazcomedian, all one word, at gmail.com. Or you can follow me on my Twitter handle. That's the same thing, at crazyazcomedian, crazy AZ comedian, all one word. Bye-bye.
What's so hard about that?